On December 20th, a chat screenshot went viral on Chinese social media, stirring up quite a shock. It claimed that Vanke's downfall sparked a political upheaval in Shenzhen, with Shenzhen Metro's top brass reportedly under travel restrictions. The message stated that Vanke was already in the process of bankruptcy proceedings, with buyers ready to swoop in after allegedly draining hundreds of billions of yuan. It also mentioned that nearly all village leaders in Longhua were being investigated. The source of this information is unknown, and its truthfulness can't be confirmed. While some call it a rumor, in China, these so-called rumors often turn out to be accurate, sometimes even outpacing official news reports. Lately, Vanke, one of China's top property developers, has been under the spotlight. The real estate sector is buzzing with rumors about its possible downfall. Although it's premature to say if Vanke will default, several reports suggest that this developer, with debts exceeding 1 trillion yuan, might be facing a major crisis. Public records indicate Vanke was once among China's biggest real estate firms. However, recent years have seen giants like Evergrande, Sunac, and Country Garden struggle financially. The burning question now is, could Vanke be next? Unlike private firms like Evergrande and Country Garden, Vanke has a distinctive ownership setup. Its biggest shareholder is the Shenzhen Metro Group, with a 27% stake. The Metro Group itself is predominantly owned and managed by the Shenzhen State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission. This arrangement makes Vanke unique, with state funds as its primary backer and its management team handling daily. Additionally, Vanke, listed on the A-share market under the code 002, has long maintained a stellar financial record. It has been widely regarded as a top performer and benchmark in China's real estate industry. While Evergrande's aggressive expansion and Country Garden's high turnover strategy seem destined to result in today's risks, Vanke has consistently set itself apart. Its management expertise and financial stability have placed it ahead of 95% of its peers. If Vanke were to face a debt default, it would signal that the entire Chinese real estate industry is on the brink of collapse. The potential impact would far surpass that of Evergrande's crisis, marking it as the most shocking failure in the history of China's property sector. Rumors about Vanke possibly defaulting aren't baseless. On December 18th, Tailian Press reported a sharp drop in Vanke's US dollar bonds. The bond due in May 2025, carrying a 3.2% coupon, lost 1.8 cents on the dollar, falling to about 87 cents, its biggest drop in 2 months. The November 2029 bond, with a 3.5% coupon, crashed by 2.4 cents to roughly 51 cents per dollar, and the November 2027 bond, at 4%, went down by 1.7 cents to 55 cents. Both have nearly halved in value. This plummet in bond prices clearly shows that creditors are losing faith in Vanke's ability to pay back its debts. This bond sell-off is tied to Vanke's recent desperate attempts to extend repayment terms with its creditors, who've reportedly turned down these requests, demanding payment on time. When talks fell through, leaks about Vanke's financial distress led to the bond price drop. It's important to note that Vanke's credit rating was downgraded to BB-, considered junk, by Moody's back in September 6. Interestingly, Evergrande had a similar junk rating from Moody's before it defaulted. On the same day, Bloomberg reported, citing insiders, that Chinese regulators had instructed the nation's largest insurance companies to report their financial exposure to Vanke. This move aims to assess how much external funding the troubled real estate giant might require to avert the risk of default. The report also revealed that these regulatory reviews began weeks ago, focusing on the insurance company's holdings of Vanke-issued bonds and private debt. According to sources, earlier this month, 2 insurance firms outsourcing annuity investments asked their external managers to review their financial exposure to Vanke. This suggests that Chinese regulators have been preparing for a potential Vanke default for at least a month. In effect, the message to these insurance companies is clear. They must be ready to withstand the potential financial shock to their own operations should Vanke collapse. On December 18th, Ye Rongtian, dubbed China's folk stock market guru, gave his take on Vanke's current stock value and what's ahead on his show. Here's what he said. It's not worth even 1 yuan, because delisting is its inevitable fate. Not a single yuan. If I were to say it's worth even 1 yuan, I'd be betraying my conscience. By the end of trading on December 20th, Vanke A shares had fallen to 7.8 yuan. Just a few days prior, on December 14th, it saw a significant drop, losing 3.2% in one day. Over time, Vanke A's stock had been setting new lows, dipping to 6.2 yuan per share in August. At the start of this year, it was around 10 yuan, which means it's now down 25%. In January 2018, it hit its peak at 31.9 yuan. Now, Vanke's market value is only a quarter of what it was at its highest point. Maybe Vanke saw the writing on the wall. On December 17th, together with the Guangzhou city government, they made a big splash by acquiring land, quite the show given their current struggles. On December 17th, Vanke's subsidiary, Guangzhou Wangan Real Estate, bought 3 plots for residential development near Guangzhou South Railway Station in Panyu for nearly 2.9 billion yuan. These plots offer about 234,000 square meters of development space. This was Vanke's first public land purchase in Guangzhou in 4 years. The news seemed to breathe some life into China's slow real estate market, with public sentiment gaining traction. People started wondering if this meant Vanke wasn't in as bad a shape as rumors suggested. Others took it as a sign that developers were regaining confidence, hinting at a market turnaround. This land grab was just the kind of signal booth the Chinese government and Vanke were aiming for. However, the story behind this land purchase isn't as straightforward as it seems. Shortly after, it came to light that this was actually a planned maneuver by Vanke and the Guangzhou city government. This misled many potential buyers and even real estate analysts. In truth, these 3 plots near Guangzhou South Railway Station have been in Vanke's development plan since before. Back in 2011, Vanke had an agreement with the local villagers there for a redevelopment project called Vanke Center Guangzhou South Station, which initially involved 15 plots, including the 3 Vanke reacquired on December 17th. When Vanke first got involved with this project, these parcels were zoned for mixed use, both commercial and residential, but with too many office spaces and commercial properties around, they weren't worth developing. So the Guangzhou government worked with Vanke to take back the land, change its zoning, and improve its development potential. They turned it into a residential land and then sold it back to Vanke. Whether Vanke paid the full 2.88 billion yuan or any amount at all is still up in the air, as these financial specifics are kept under wraps. Publicly, though, this was presented as Guangzhou's innovative approach to make better use of underperforming land. This maneuver served dual purposes. Guangzhou could boast about adding 2.88 billion yuan to their land sale revenue, showcasing their success. Meanwhile, Vanke used this to lift market spirits, which was exactly what they needed. All in all, it looked like a win-win. They probably didn't see it coming, but the day after, Bloomberg's report stole the spotlight from Vanke's land deal. The hidden truths came out, and the short-lived positive buzz vanished overnight. It's worth noting that this wasn't Vanke's first brush with government intervention over its debt issues. Back in early March, the authorities made an unprecedented move. On March 9, the Housing and Urban Rural Development Minister suggested that deeply troubled, non-functional real estate firms should declare bankruptcy or restructure. Yet shortly after, the government directed 12 banks to organize an 80 billion yuan syndicated loan to help Vanke navigate through its financial troubles. Even though Vanke hasn't officially defaulted, its financial health has been on a clear downward spiral since last year, signaling a major drop in profits. Vanke's 2023 annual report shows total liabilities at 1.1 trillion yuan, with 320 billion yuan in interest-bearing debt. Its operating revenue dropped by 7.6% from the previous year, and net profit fell by half. Despite ranking second with 376 billion yuan in sales, it's like Vanke's size has shrunk back to 2016. After the report came out, Vanke announced no dividend this year, ending a 31-year tradition. This is only the second time since going public in 1991, not counting the IPO year, that they've skipped dividends. Last year, Vanke managed to stay out of the red despite the downturn, but things got worse in the first quarter of this year. Sales contracts amounted to 58 billion yuan, down a shocking 43% from last year. More critically, for the first time since going public, Vanke reported a loss, with a net deficit of 362 million yuan. Vanke has been hit with one scandal after another. In Yantai City in Shandong Province, its local partners accused it of shady dealings, like setting up pseudo-banks to give out high-interest loans and diverting construction money while misleading shareholders. Then, the head of Vanke's Jinan office was supposedly detained for investigation. Rumors spread that some of Vanke's top brass were barred from leaving the country. This flood of bad news has raised serious questions about Vanke's management and controls, causing panic among investors worried about a potential massive default. With China's real estate market in a prolonged slump, Vanke's sales keep getting worse. For the first half of this year, they reported revenue of only 143 billion yuan, a sharp 29% drop from last year, and losses close to 10 billion yuan. On October 30th, Vanke released its third quarter report for 2024. The figures showed that from January to September, the company's total operating revenue was 220 billion yuan, down nearly 24% from the previous year. During this time, shareholders faced a net loss of 18 billion yuan. Just in the third quarter, Vanke had revenue of about 77 billion yuan, but a shareholder net loss of around 8 billion yuan, marking the biggest financial hit in the company's history. It's important to mention that of the 220 billion yuan in revenue for the first three quarters, only 173 billion was from selling homes. The other 47 billion came mostly from selling off assets at a discount. This indicates that Vanke's home sales revenue has fallen by 29% year over year, a drop that could be devastating for any real estate company. The third quarter report revealed that by September's end, Vanke's interest-bearing debt totaled 328 billion yuan, with 64% being long-term. They had 80 billion yuan in cash on hand. The report also disclosed that by September 30th, Vanke had 19.6 million square meters, or around 200,000 units of homes sold but still under construction. The 200,000 buyers are hoping Vanke stays afloat. If not, they could end up as part of the increasing number of people stuck with unfinished homes. China's real estate market isn't showing any signs of bouncing back, leaving Vanke with price cuts as the only way to increase sales. Given the losses from the first three quarters, there's not much wiggle room for more reductions. If Vanke keeps dropping prices, they might not make enough to cover expenses, putting them in a tough spot to pay for construction, loan interest, staff salaries, and most importantly, to deliver completed homes. Analysts in the industry think Vanke might just hang on until year's end, but they warn of a potential funding chain collapse by next year's first quarter. Should that occur, Vanke could come to a full stop, with all projects freezing and the company entering a state of complete paralysis. How did Vanke, once a shining star in China's real estate industry, find itself in this tough spot? Ironically, Vanke was one of the first to see trouble coming. Back in 2018, at the height of its success, they adopted the slogan, "Survive." This was right when China's real estate market was moving from boom to bust. People took it as a sign that Vanke knew change was on the horizon and would take smart steps like pulling back on growth, cutting down on land and debt, and building up cash to better weather the market and financial storms. Surprisingly, Vanke's actions in the following years went against their own warning. Rather than retreating strategically, they kept expanding fast, pushing growth until the real estate market finally crashed. Looking back at what Vanke did recently, it's clear their situation was bound to happen. They fell into the common pitfall of chasing size for the sake of size and letting their leaders' overambition get the best of them. Take 2018, for example, where Vanke took a small step towards spreading risk by cutting its share in projects with local governments by just 7%. It went from 60% to 53%, a tiny tweak showing caution but not enough to really shield against risks. Despite talking down the market and preaching caution, Vanke's actions said otherwise. By 2019, their stake in projects was up 66.7%. It dipped to about 61.2% in 2020, then jumped to 71.3% in 2021, the year the real estate bubble started to burst. They didn't really try to lessen their market risks. Between 2018 and 2021, as China's real estate bubble slowly popped, Vanke led in land buying for 3 out of those 4 years, coming in second once. This time was marked by the risk of land kings, where nearly every land deal set new price records, often higher than the value of the homes around them, a classic case of paying more for the ingredients than the finished product. Vanke played a big role in this trend, heightening market risks and inflating China's property bubble. So when it burst, it's no surprise Vanke was hit hard. This shows that Vanke didn't manage to foresee or dodge risks effectively. Once seen as an industry leader, Vanke ended up just going along with the market trends. By 2022, the real estate market in China had pretty much fallen apart, revealing big risks. Still, Vanke didn't pull back. They spent 49.6 billion yuan on land that year, which was a 64.6% drop from 2021, but it was still a lot, ranking them 6th in land buying among developers. In 2023, despite the market crashing completely, Vanke still bought land worth 46.3 billion yuan, mostly in the first half. This put them 8th on the list of biggest land buyers that year. Why did Vanke keep buying land so aggressively in 2022, even with clear market risks? Some people think it was to help local governments in financial trouble who really needed the money from land sales. With other developers defaulting or bankrupt, Vanke, being relatively stable and backed by state funds, could step up. Plus, by snapping up land, Vanke could use over 200 billion yuan to unlock trillions in bank loans. This not only gave Vanke funds but also tightened their relationship with local governments, seeming like a win-win deal. In the end, Vanke's heavy land buying was what pushed them over the edge. If they had cut back to spending just a few billion yuan on land over the last couple of years, they could have saved over 90 billion in cash. This extra cash would have made managing project completions and debt much easier. Even if some projects lost money, they still would have had enough to cover the short-term debts and weather the market slump. Right now, Vanke is teetering on the brink of collapse. People wonder if the Shenzhen SASAC, known as Vanke's big supporter, will step in to save them. The answer is no. Rescuing Vanke would require at least 100 billion yuan. To do this, Shenzhen would need to revise its annual fiscal budget, adding this huge expense as a special project. However, Shenzhen's entire budget for 2024 is only 472 billion yuan. Adding such a massive extra cost would force the government to explain where the money would come from. Will they cut from other budget items? If not, where would this 100 billion yuan come from? Could there be undisclosed income? These are tricky questions. On top of that, being a sub-provincial city, Shenzhen's budget has to be approved by the premier of the state council. Even after that, it needs the green light from the CCP National Congress Standing Committee. Just getting through this approval process is incredibly complicated and almost unfeasible. What's more critical is that for Shenzhen's leaders, saving Vanke doesn't bring any political advantage. The officials wouldn't get any praise, promotions, or political points for it. Politically speaking, there's no payoff in rescuing Vanke, so it's highly unlikely that Shenzhen would fork over a large sum to bail them out. Given this, Vanke seems headed for default, bankruptcy, and eventually being delisted.